Hello. I want to share something with you today that might change how you think about recovery. If you're struggling with addiction right now, you've probably set big goals for yourself. Maybe you've promised yourself you'll quit completely, starting tomorrow. Maybe you've made grand resolutions about changing your entire life overnight. Maybe you've looked at where you are and where you want to be, and the distance between them feels impossible to cross. And maybe you've failed at those big goals. Maybe you've tried to change everything at once and found yourself right back where you started, feeling more defeated than before. If this is you, I want to introduce you to a different approach, a Japanese concept called Kaizen. Kaizen means continuous improvement or change for the better. But it's not about dramatic transformation or sudden breakthroughs. It's about something much simpler, much gentler, and paradoxically, much more powerful. Small, incremental improvements made consistently over time. Today, I want to show you how Kaizen can be your pathway out of addiction, not through heroic willpower or dramatic change, but through tiny steps so small they feel almost laughable. Yet these tiny steps, accumulated over time, can carry you further than you ever imagined. Let me start by validating something you've probably experienced. Trying to change everything at once usually doesn't work for addiction recovery. You wake up one morning and declare, "That's it, I'm done. I'm never doing this again. I'm going to completely transform my life starting today." And maybe you do well for a few hours, or a few days, or even a few weeks. But then life gets stressful. A trigger appears. The craving becomes overwhelming, and suddenly you're right back in the old pattern, often feeling worse than before because now you've failed again. This isn't because you're weak or broken. This is because your brain doesn't respond well to sudden, dramatic change. Here's why. Your brain craves homeostasis. Even when your current state is unhealthy, it's familiar. Your brain has built neural pathways around your addiction. It knows how to function in this state. When you try to change everything suddenly, your brain perceives this as a threat and activates resistance mechanisms. Willpower is a limited resource. Research shows that willpower depletes throughout the day. Trying to use massive amounts of willpower to sustain dramatic change is like trying to sprint a marathon. You'll burn out quickly. Big goals trigger fear. When you set a huge goal like never use again for the rest of my life, your brain calculates the enormous difficulty of that goal and often generates anxiety or overwhelm that actually increases the urge to use. All or nothing thinking sets you up for failure. When your goal is perfection and you slip up even once, it's easy to think, "I've already failed, so I might as well give up completely." This binary thinking doesn't allow for the reality of how change actually happens. So, if you've tried the big, dramatic approach and it hasn't worked, please don't interpret that as evidence that you can't recover. It's just evidence that you need a different approach. That's where Kaizen comes in. Kaizen originated in post-World War II Japan, initially in manufacturing contexts. Japanese companies discovered that making small, continuous improvements in their processes was more effective than occasional large-scale changes. Workers were encouraged to suggest small improvements, sometimes ridiculously small, like moving a tool 2 inches closer or adjusting a step in a process by 30 seconds. These tiny changes, multiplied across thousands of workers and implemented consistently, led to massive improvements in quality and efficiency. Toyota famously built their entire production system around Kaizen, and it transformed them into one of the world's most successful companies. But Kaizen isn't just for manufacturing. It's a philosophy that applies to any area of life where you want to improve, including recovery from addiction.
The core principles of Kaizen are 1. Small, incremental changes are more sustainable than big ones. Rather than trying to overhaul your entire life, you make one tiny improvement, then another, then another. 2. Continuous improvement never stops. You're not trying to reach perfection and then maintain it. You're constantly looking for the next small thing you can improve. 3. Everyone can participate. You don't need special skills or superhuman willpower. Anyone can make a small improvement. 4. Process matters more than results. You focus on improving your daily actions and habits, trusting that better results will follow. 5. Change should feel almost effortless. If a change feels too hard, make it smaller until it feels manageable. Applied to addiction recovery, Kaizen means you don't try to quit everything cold turkey and rebuild your life overnight. Instead, you make one small improvement today. Tomorrow, you make another small improvement. The day after, another. These improvements accumulate, they compound, and over time, they carry you to a place you couldn't have reached through dramatic change alone. There's a powerful idea within Kaizen called the aggregation of marginal gains, or what I call the 1% better principle. If you improve by just 1% each day, you don't just end up 365% better at the end of a year. Because of the compounding effect, you end up 37 times better. Let me illustrate this mathematically. If you improve by 1% each day, 1.01 to the power of 365 equals 37.78. If you get 1% worse each day, 0.99 to the power of 365 equals 0.03. The difference between getting 1% better versus 1% worse each day is the difference between ending the year 37 times better or nearly at 0. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to mathematically calculate your improvement, but this principle shows why tiny, consistent improvements are so powerful. In addiction recovery, this might look like week 1, instead of using 3 times a day, you use twice a day. That's not sobriety, but it's a 33% reduction, much more than 1% better. Week 2, you delay your first use of the day by 1 hour. Small improvement. Week 3, you identify one trigger and develop one small strategy for managing it. Tiny progress. Week 4, you reach out to one person when you're struggling instead of isolating. Another small step. None of these changes alone would be considered recovery, but together, accumulated over time, they create momentum. They build confidence. They prove to you that change is possible, and they're leading you somewhere, toward freedom.
The most important principle of Kaizen in recovery is this: start so small that failure is nearly impossible. I mean ridiculously small, laughably small. So small you might feel like it doesn't even count as trying. Let me give you examples of what ridiculously small looks like. Instead of, "I'm going to quit my addiction completely starting today," try, "Today, I'm going to wait 60 seconds after I feel the urge, before I act on it." Instead of, "I'm going to start exercising every day," try, "Today, I'm going to do 1 push-up." Instead of, "I'm going to completely change my friend group and avoid all triggers," try, "Today, I'm going to leave the room when one specific trigger appears." Instead of, "I'm never going to look at triggering content again," try, "Today, when I pick up my phone, I'm going to put it down once without checking that app." Instead of, "I'm going to fix my entire sleep schedule," try, "Tonight, I'm going to get into bed 5 minutes earlier than usual." Instead of, "I'm going to start meditating for an hour each morning," try, "Today, I'm going to take 3 conscious breaths when I wake up." Do you see the pattern? Each of these is so small that it barely feels like progress, and that's exactly the point. When a change is this small, your brain doesn't resist it,
You don't need much willpower. Success feels virtually guaranteed. You build momentum and confidence. You prove to yourself that change is possible. These tiny victories accumulate into bigger ones, but you have to start with something so small that you actually do it. One practical Kaizen strategy for addiction recovery is what I call the 2-minute rule. Any new habit you want to build should take less than 2 minutes to do. This doesn't mean the habit will always stay at 2 minutes. It means it starts there. For example, exercise regularly becomes put on your workout shoes. That's it. That's the habit. Once the shoes are on, you might decide to go for a walk, but all you're committing to is putting on the shoes. Eat healthier becomes put one vegetable on your plate. You don't have to eat it, you just have to put it there. Journal about my feelings instead of using becomes write one sentence, just one. Build a morning routine becomes make your bed. That's the whole routine to start. Attend support group meetings becomes find one meeting time and location. You don't have to go yet, just find it. The 2-minute rule works because it overcomes the initial resistance. Starting is often the hardest part. When you only commit to 2 minutes, starting feels manageable. It often naturally extends. Once you've put on your workout shoes, you frequently decide to go for a walk. Once you've written one sentence, you often write a few more, but you don't require yourself to. You just allow it to happen. It builds the identity. Even if you only write one sentence, you're still someone who journals. Even if you only put on workout shoes, you're still someone who prioritizes fitness. Identity change happens through consistent small actions. It's sustainable. You can maintain a 2-minute habit even on your worst days. This creates the consistency that drives long-term change. In recovery, the 2-minute rule might mean, when I feel an urge, I will pause for 2 minutes before I act on it. That's it, just 2 minutes of pause. Often in those 2 minutes, you can deploy other strategies, or the peak of the urge passes, or you reach out to someone, or you distract yourself with something else. But even if none of that happens, you've still succeeded at your 2-minute habit, and that success matters. Let's get specific about how to apply Kaizen to one of the biggest challenges in recovery, cravings. Traditional approaches often frame cravings as battles you must win through strength and willpower. Kaizen offers a different perspective. Cravings are opportunities for small improvements in how you respond to discomfort. Here's a Kaizen progression for managing cravings. Level 1, Week 1, Awareness. Small improvement, notice when you have a craving. That's it. You don't have to resist it or change your behavior. Just notice it and maybe make a mental note. I'm having a craving right now. This builds the crucial skill of awareness, observing your internal state without immediately reacting to it. Level 2, Week 2, Delay. Small improvement, when you notice a craving, wait 60 seconds before acting on it. Set a timer if you need to. After 60 seconds, you can do whatever you were going to do. This creates a tiny gap between urge and action. In that gap, you're building the capacity for self-control. Level 3, Week 3, Extend the delay. Small improvement, increase the delay to 5 minutes. Use those 5 minutes to do something, anything else. Walk to another room, drink water, look out a window. Level 4, add a competing response. Small improvement, during your delay period, do one specific competing behavior. Maybe it's texting a friend. Maybe it's doing jumping jacks. Maybe it's reading one page of a book. Level 5, question the craving. Small improvement, during your delay, ask yourself one question. What am I really craving right now? What need am I trying to meet? Often, the craving isn't really for the substance or behavior. It's for relief from anxiety, escape from loneliness, numbing of pain, or something else. Identifying the real need helps you find healthier ways to meet it. Level 6, Week 6. Choose sometimes. Small improvement, not every craving requires a response. Sometimes you can notice the craving, delay, and then choose not to act on it. Start with choosing not to act on one craving per day, just one. Notice what's happening here. We're not trying to eliminate cravings or resist them all immediately. We're building skills gradually, step by tiny step. By level 6, you're successfully managing some cravings without acting on them. But you got there through incremental improvements, not through heroic willpower. One of the most powerful aspects of Kaizen for recovery is how it changes your identity gradually. Your identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are, is one of the strongest forces in your life. If you identify as an addict, you'll likely keep behaving like one even when you're trying to change. But identity change through Kaizen happens almost invisibly. Small action. You take 3 deep breaths when you feel stressed instead of immediately reaching for your addiction. Repeated over time, after doing this dozens of times, you start to see yourself as someone who can manage stress without using. Identity shifts. You're no longer just an addict. You're someone who's learning healthier coping skills, then someone in recovery, then someone who's mostly free from addiction, then someone who used to struggle with addiction but doesn't anymore. This identity shift happens through accumulated small actions, not through deciding to believe something different about yourself. Here's how to use Kaizen for identity change. 1. Choose the identity you want to build. Not, I'm not an addict. That's defining yourself by what you're not. Instead, I'm someone who takes care of their health, or I'm someone who's learning to sit with discomfort, or I'm someone in recovery. 2. Identify the smallest actions someone with that identity would take. Someone who takes care of their health might drink 1 glass of water first thing in the morning. Someone who's learning to sit with discomfort might spend 30 seconds feeling an uncomfortable emotion without trying to fix it. Someone in recovery might check in with one person about how they're doing. 3. Do that tiny action consistently. Don't worry about whether you feel like that identity yet, just take the action. Your identity will catch up to your actions over time. 4. Gradually expand the actions. As the small action becomes automatic, add another small action that aligns with your desired identity. 5. Notice and celebrate evidence. When you take an action aligned with your desired identity, acknowledge it. I did that. That's the kind of person I'm becoming. Over time, weeks and months, these small identity-aligned actions accumulate into genuine identity change. You won't even remember making a decision to change who you are. You'll just notice one day that you think of yourself differently. One practical tool for implementing Kaizen in your recovery is what I call the Kaizen Recovery Journal. This is different from typical recovery journals that ask you to pour out all your feelings or analyze your triggers in depth. The Kaizen Recovery Journal is simple and focused on small improvements. Here's how it works. Each day, you record 3 things. 1 small improvement, OSI. What's one tiny thing you did today that was even 1% better than yesterday? This could be delayed acting on a craving for 2 minutes, drank 1 glass of water, made your bed, sent 1 encouraging text to someone, took 1 walk around the block, said no to 1 trigger, spent 1 minute breathing deeply. The improvement must be small and specific, not I was better today or I tried harder. 2. One thing that worked, OTW. What's one strategy, tool, or action that helped you today, even slightly? This builds your awareness of what actually works for you. Calling my friend when I felt an urge really helped. Going to bed earlier made today easier. Avoiding that specific location reduced my cravings. Eating breakfast gave me more energy to resist. 3. Tomorrow's tiny target, TTT. What's one ridiculously small improvement you'll attempt tomorrow? This keeps you focused on the next small step. Tomorrow, I'll pause for 90 seconds instead of 60 seconds. Tomorrow, I'll text my sponsor in the morning. Tomorrow, I'll go outside for 5 minutes when I feel stressed. Tomorrow, I'll identify one new trigger to watch for. That's it. 3 brief entries. Takes less than 5 minutes. The power of this journal is it keeps you focused on progress, not perfection. It helps you notice what's working. It prevents you from trying to change everything at once. It creates a record of your improvements that you can look back on, and it makes each day feel manageable. After a month, you can look back and see 30 small improvements. After a year, 365. That's not just progress, that's transformation. Here's one of the most important aspects of Kaizen for addiction recovery: how you handle setbacks. In all or nothing thinking, a relapse or slip-up means total failure. You've broken your sobriety, ruined your progress, and have to start over from zero. In Kaizen thinking, a setback is just data, information about what didn't work, which helps you make a small improvement for next time. Here's the Kaizen failure recovery process. Step 1. Acknowledge what happened. I acted on my addiction today. This happened. Simple, factual, no self-judgment. Step 2. Identify one factor. What was one thing that contributed to this? Not all the things, just one. Maybe I skipped breakfast and my blood sugar was low. I was in that specific location that triggers me. I didn't sleep well last night. I isolated all day without talking to anyone. Step 3. Design one small improvement. Based on that one factor, what's one tiny thing you could do differently next time? Tomorrow, I'll eat breakfast before leaving the house. Next time, I'll avoid that location. Tonight, I'll go to bed 15 minutes earlier. Tomorrow, I'll text one person, even just to say hi. Step 5. Reset immediately. You don't wait until Monday or next month to start improving again. You make your small improvement immediately. Today, if possible. Tomorrow at the latest. Step 6. Count forward, not backward. Instead of thinking, I'm back to day 0, think, I'm on day 1 of my next improvement cycle. Notice what's different here. You're not denying that the setback happened or pretending it doesn't matter, but you're also not catastrophizing it or using it as evidence that you can't change. You're treating it as valuable information that helps you make your next small improvement. This approach is psychologically sustainable in a way that all or nothing thinking isn't. It allows you to keep moving forward even when you stumble. Kaizen isn't just about changing your actions, it's also about making small improvements to your environment that support your recovery. Environmental design is powerful because it doesn't rely on willpower. When your environment is set up to support better choices, you make those choices more easily. Here are Kaizen approaches to environment. Week 1. Remove one trigger. Don't try to eliminate all triggers at once. Just remove one. If certain apps trigger you, delete one app. If certain locations trigger you, avoid one location. If certain people trigger you, reduce contact with one person. One removal. That's the week's improvement. Week 2. Add one helpful thing. Add something to your environment that supports recovery. Maybe it's a water bottle on your nightstand, a book about recovery on your coffee table, a photo of someone you're recovering for, a plant that you're responsible for caring for, a note with an encouraging message. Week 3. Reorganize one space. Take one room or area and arrange it to support better habits. Maybe put healthy snacks at eye level. Move your phone charging station out of your bedroom. Create a small meditation corner. Organize your space so it's calmer and less chaotic. Week 4. Add one friction point to bad habits. Make your addiction slightly harder to access. This could be logging out of triggering accounts so you have to log back in, adding a small delay. Putting triggering substances in an inconvenient location. Unfollowing triggering accounts. Changing your routine so you're not in triggering situations automatically. Week 5. Remove one friction point for good habits. Make healthy alternatives easier. Maybe put your journal and pen next to your bed. Set out workout clothes the night before. Pre-program your sponsor's number for one-touch calling. Keep healthy snacks already prepared. Week 6. Add one visual reminder. Put something in your environment that reminds you of your commitment. Your day's sober count where you'll see it. A meaningful quote or image. A symbol of what you're working towards. A photo from a meaningful moment in your recovery. Each week, one small environmental improvement. After 6 weeks, your environment looks significantly different and is supporting your recovery much more effectively. And you didn't have to overhaul everything at once, which would have been overwhelming and unsustainable.
Recovery doesn't happen in isolation, and Kaizen applies to how you build supportive relationships too. Rather than trying to immediately build a complete support network or cut off all unhealthy relationships at once, you make small improvements in your relational life. Tiny step 1. Identify one safe person. You don't need a whole support team immediately. Just identify one person you could potentially reach out to when you're struggling. Just one. Tiny step 2. Make one small contact. Send that person one message, not pouring out everything or asking for major support, just making contact. Hey, hope you're doing well. Tiny step 3. Share one small truth. In your next interaction with that person, share one small, honest thing. Not your whole story, just one true thing. I've been struggling a bit lately. Tiny step 4. Ask for one specific thing. Make one small request. Would you be willing to check in on me tomorrow? Or can I text you when I'm having a hard time? Tiny step 5. Attend one meeting or group. If you're not already connected to a recovery community, attend one meeting, just one. You don't have to share. You don't have to commit to going regularly. Just show up once. Tiny step 6. Speak one time. At a meeting or group, share one thing. It could be as simple as, "Hi, I'm name, and I'm here because I'm struggling with addiction." Tiny step 7. Connect with one person after. After a meeting, talk briefly to one other person. Exchange numbers or social media if it feels right. Tiny step 8. Create one boundary. Identify one relationship that's harmful to your recovery. Create one small boundary with that person. Maybe you don't answer calls after a certain time. Decline one specific type of invitation. Leave one situation earlier than you used to. Respond less frequently to messages. Each of these steps is small enough to be manageable, but together they build a relational environment that supports your recovery rather than undermining it. Let me give you a concrete daily practice that embodies Kaizen principles for addiction recovery. This is something you can start today. Morning, 2 minutes total. Wake up breath, 30 seconds. Before checking your phone or getting out of bed, take 3 slow, deep breaths. This is your reminder that you're in control of how you start your day. Today's tiny target, 30 seconds. Identify one small improvement you'll make today. Write it down or say it out loud. Today, I will specific small action. Intention setting, 1 minute. Ask yourself, what's one small reason I have to get out of bed today? It could be as simple as, I want to see what the weather is like, or
I want to make myself breakfast. One small reason. During the day, as needed. Urge pause. 60 seconds. When you feel an urge or craving, pause for 60 seconds before doing anything. During that pause, take 3 breaths and notice what you're feeling. 1 replacement. Variable. When an urge comes, do one small, healthy behavior instead. Drink water, step outside, text someone, stretch. Just one small thing. Track your wins. 30 seconds. Each time you make a small, healthy choice, acknowledge it briefly. Mental note, I did that. That counts. Evening. 3 minutes total. Kaizen review. 2 minutes. Before bed, ask yourself, what's one small thing I did well today? What's one thing that helped? What's one tiny improvement I can make tomorrow? Gratitude moment. 1 minute. Identify one small thing you're grateful for today. It can be tiny. I'm grateful for that moment of sunshine, or I'm grateful I made it through today. Total time, about 5 to 6 minutes of structured practice throughout the day, plus the tiny actions themselves. This isn't a complete recovery program. You still need therapy, support groups, addressing underlying issues, etc., but it's a daily practice of small improvements that builds recovery momentum. I know what some of you might be thinking. This is too slow. I need to change now. My life is falling apart. I don't have time for tiny steps. I understand that urgency. I really do. When you're in crisis, when your addiction is destroying your life, when you're desperate for change, the idea of improving by 1% at a time can feel inadequate. But here's what I need you to hear. Fast, dramatic change rarely lasts. Slow, incremental change usually does. Think about it this way. The sprint approach. You try to change everything immediately. You might succeed for a few days or weeks using enormous willpower. Then you crash, relapse, and end up back where you started, or worse. You spend more time recovering from the crash than you did making progress. The Kaizen approach. You improve by tiny amounts consistently. It feels slow, even painfully slow, but you keep moving forward. There are setbacks, but they're smaller, and you recover from them quickly. After 6 months, you look back and realize you've come further than you ever did with the sprint approach. Additionally, consider this. How long have you been struggling with your addiction? Months? Years? Decades? If it took years to develop, it's unrealistic to think it will disappear in days. Recovery is a process, not an event. Kaizen acknowledges this reality. It doesn't promise quick fixes, but it does promise sustainable progress. That said, Kaizen can coexist with more intensive support when you need it. If you're in crisis, seek immediate help. Therapy, treatment programs, medical support. Connect with crisis resources. Get the intensive support you need. Then, as you stabilize, use Kaizen principles to build long-term sustainable recovery on top of that foundation. Kaizen isn't a substitute for professional help. It's a philosophy for how to approach the daily work of recovery. Let me share some examples of how people have used Kaizen principles in their recovery. These are based on real clients I've worked with, identifying details changed. Sarah's story, the 5-minute rule. Sarah struggled with alcoholism. She'd tried quitting cold turkey multiple times and always relapsed within weeks. We started with Kaizen. Her first tiny target: when I get home from work and want to drink, I'll wait 5 minutes before having that first drink. Just 5 minutes, that was the entire goal. During those 5 minutes, she'd often do something small. Change clothes, check the mail, pet her cat. Sometimes she still drank after 5 minutes, but sometimes, in those 5 minutes, the peak of the urge would pass, or she'd get distracted, or she'd decide to wait 5 more minutes. After 2 weeks, she increased to 10 minutes, then 15, then 30. After 3 months, her new pattern was come home, wait 30 minutes, do something else during that time, make dinner, go for a walk, call a friend. By the time 30 minutes passed, she often didn't want to drink anymore. Within 6 months, she'd gone from drinking every evening to drinking 1 to 2 times per week. Within a year, she was mostly sober with occasional relapses that became less frequent over time. She didn't achieve this through willpower or dramatic change. She achieved it through small, incremental delays that became new habits. Marcus struggled with multiple addictions and severe depression. He spent most days in bed using various substances to numb his pain. We started absurdly small, 1 push-up per day. That was it. He thought it was ridiculous. What would 1 push-up accomplish? But he agreed to try. For 2 weeks, he did 1 push-up each day. Sometimes he did more, but the goal was just 1. After 2 weeks, we added 1 push-up and 1 minute of standing outside. After a month, 1 push-up, 1 minute outside, and making his bed. After 3 months, a 10-minute walk, making his bed, washing his face, and eating 1 healthy meal. Each addition was small, each felt manageable. None required superhuman willpower. After a year, Marcus had built a morning routine, was exercising regularly, had reduced his substance use by about 70%, and was actively engaged in therapy. His depression had improved significantly. He told me, "I never would have believed that 1 push-up could lead to this, but it wasn't really about the push-up. It was about proving to myself that I could do something, anything, even when I felt completely hopeless." Linda's story, The Awareness Journal. Linda struggled with compulsive sexual behavior and pornography addiction. She felt enormous shame and had tried to quit many times but always relapsed. We started with just awareness. For 1 week, she would simply notice and write down each time she acted out. No judgment, no attempt to change behavior, just awareness. This was hard for her. She didn't want to face the reality of how often it was happening, but she committed to the tiny step. After 1 week of awareness, we added 1 small question. What was I feeling right before I acted out? She began noticing patterns: loneliness, boredom, anxiety, stress from work. After another week, we added, what's 1 small thing I could do to address that feeling differently? She started building a list of alternatives for different emotions. When lonely, text a friend. When anxious, take a walk. When bored, work on a craft project she enjoyed. After a month, her new practice was notice the urge, identify the underlying feeling, and try 1 small alternative before acting out. She could still act out if the alternative didn't help, no pressure for perfection. Over time, the alternatives started working more often. Within 6 months, she'd reduced her acting out by about 60%. Within a year, she had long stretches of sobriety interrupted by occasional relapses that she recovered from quickly using her tools. The Kaizen approach worked for her because it removed shame from the process and made each step feel achievable.
Let me give you a set of questions you can use to apply Kaizen to your own recovery. These questions help you identify tiny next steps rather than overwhelming yourself with big goals. Start where you are. On a scale of 1 to 10, where am I right now in terms of my addiction? 1 equals completely controlled by it, 10 equals completely free. What would moving from that number to just 1 number higher look like in concrete terms? What's the smallest possible action that would represent that 1-point improvement?
Identify the leverage points. What's one time of day when my urges are strongest? What's one small change I could make to that specific time that might help even 5%? What's one trigger I encounter most frequently? What's one tiny adjustment that would reduce my exposure to that trigger or change how I respond to it? Build on small wins. What's one small healthy behavior I already do sometimes, even if inconsistently? How could I make that behavior 10% more consistent? What's one barrier to doing that behavior? How could I reduce that barrier by just a little? Address the foundation. Which basic self-care area needs most attention? Sleep, nutrition, or movement? What's one ridiculously small improvement I could make in that area this week? What's one person who could support me? What's one small way I could connect with them this week? Plan for obstacles. What's one situation where I'm most likely to struggle this week? What's one tiny preparation I could make ahead of time for that situation? If I do relapse or slip up, what's one small thing I'll do immediately afterward to get back on track? Measure progress. What's one specific, measurable way I can track my tiny improvements? How will I remind myself to acknowledge small wins rather than fixating on what I haven't achieved yet? These questions help you think in terms of small, specific, actionable steps rather than vague, overwhelming goals. Let me paint you a picture of what sustained Kaizen practice might look like over time. Month 1, you're making tiny improvements. Maybe you're delaying urges for a few minutes. Maybe you're drinking 1 glass of water each morning. Maybe you're texting one supportive friend once a week. The changes feel almost invisible, and you might doubt whether they matter. Month 3, you notice that some healthy behaviors are becoming automatic. You've reduced your addictive behavior by maybe 20 to 30%, not through dramatic willpower, but through accumulated small changes. You have a few tools that reliably help when you're struggling. Month 6, your daily life looks noticeably different. You have routines that support your recovery. You've addressed several triggers. You have people you can reach out to. You're experiencing longer stretches without acting out, and when you do relapse, you recover more quickly. Your confidence is growing. Month 9, you're surprised to realize that you sometimes go days without thinking about your addiction. It's no longer the organizing principle of your entire life. You have other interests, connections, and purposes. The addiction still whispers sometimes, but it's one voice among many, not the only voice. Month 12, you look back at where you were a year ago and you barely recognize that person. Not because you've become perfect, but because the accumulation of small improvements has genuinely transformed your daily life. You still have hard days, but you have confidence that you can handle them. You're not just surviving, you're building a life you actually want to live. Year 2 and beyond, Kaizen has become a way of life. You're not focused on your addiction anymore. You're focused on continuous improvement in all areas. Your recovery is stable enough that you can think about other goals: career, relationships, contributions, growth. The addiction is part of your history, not your present or future. This is what Kaizen offers: not quick transformation, but sustainable, genuine, lasting change built one tiny improvement at a time. So here's my invitation to you. Don't try to change everything today. Don't make grand resolutions. Don't promise yourself you'll be perfect starting tomorrow. Instead, identify one ridiculously small improvement you can make today. Something so small that failure is nearly impossible. Maybe it's waiting 60 seconds after an urge before acting, drinking 1 glass of water when you wake up, texting one supportive person one message, taking 3 conscious breaths, writing 1 sentence in a journal, walking outside for 2 minutes, going to bed 5 minutes earlier, removing 1 trigger from your environment. Just one thing, one tiny thing, so small it almost feels like it doesn't count. Do that one thing today. Tomorrow, do it again, and maybe add one more tiny thing or improve today's tiny thing by 1%. Don't worry about next week or next month or next year. Just focus on today's small improvement. The improvements will accumulate, they'll compound, and 6 months from now, you'll look back and be amazed at how far tiny steps have carried you. Kaizen isn't dramatic or heroic in any single moment, but it works. It works because it's sustainable, because it builds on small wins, because it doesn't require you to be someone you're not. You don't need to be strong enough to change everything at once. You just need to be willing to improve by 1% today. Can you do that? I believe you can.